I was enjoying my day off lounging on my sofa and scrolling through Netflix when my phone buzzed. The screen displayed the words, "Family emergency," from Mom. My stomach clenched as I read the message. I stared at my mom's text in our family group chat. Mason needs help. Video call in 5 minutes? My finger hovered reluctantly over the button before I tapped to join. Elaine, sweetheart, how are you doing? Mom's voice had that syrupy tone she always used when she wanted something. I'm fine. Just trying to relax on my day off, I replied, my shoulders already tensing. Well, I hate to interrupt, but Mason's in a situation, she said, confirming my suspicions. He's been evicted from his apartment. The lease ended and he's having some temporary cash flow issues with his music production. I sighed. Mason was 26, 6 years younger than me, and had never quite gotten his act together. He drifted from gig to gig, relationship to relationship, always with elaborate stories about why things fell apart. Mom, what exactly are you asking? I questioned, though the hollow feeling in my chest told me I already knew. She said you still have that empty condo from your divorce with Mark. Mason needs somewhere to set up his studio until he gets his next producing gig. Maybe he could stay there for a while. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. That condo was my financial safety net. After my divorce 2 years ago, I kept the property we'd bought together. Last year, I purchased a modern townhouse in a neighborhood, stretching myself thin with a hefty mortgage. Mom, I plan to rent that place out for rental income to help with my mortgage. I know, sweetie, but family comes first. Mason really needs this break. You're doing so well at your marketing agency, and he's struggling. It would just be temporary. I knew what temporary meant in Mason's vocabulary. I also knew if I refused, Mom would post nostalgic family photos with family first captions, subtly implying I'd abandoned my brother in trouble. Fine, I said after a long pause. He can stay there temporarily, but I mean temporarily, Mom. Thank you so much. Mason will be so grateful. I'll tell him right away. Before I could set any conditions, she ended the call. I threw my phone onto the cushion beside me and groaned loudly. My carefully planned rental income suddenly seemed like a distant dream. A week later, Mason came to my condo with his belongings, music equipment, and very few personal items. He looked exactly as I expected, relaxed in designer jeans and a vintage band t-shirt, as if being evicted was a minor inconvenience in his creative journey. Hey sis, you're literally saving my life right now, he said, giving me a quick hug that smelled faintly of marijuana. Yeah, I told Mom, this is temporary, I reminded him, unlocking the door and stepping inside. The place was spotless with just the basic furniture I'd left behind. I need rental income from this property. Totally, Mason said, already eyeing the walls as if measuring them. I'll be out before you know it. Just need to finish my EP, you know? Got some serious industry interest already. I'd heard variations of this promise for years. Mason, I need you to sign this rental agreement I drafted, I said, pulling up a document on my phone. He glanced at it with barely concealed annoyance before quickly composing his features. Sure, whatever you need. First, no moving anyone else in without permission. Second, maintain the property in its current condition. Third, respect the noise ordinances. The neighbors know me professionally. Fourth, no structural modifications without prior approval. Mason held up his hands. Completely reasonable. I'll be the model tenant. You'll forget I'm even here. For the first few weeks, I monitored the situation carefully. I checked Mason's Instagram daily and occasionally scheduled video calls to catch up. To my surprise, he seemed to be keeping his promises. The apartment looked tidy in our video chats. See? I told you I'd grown up, he texted one evening alongside a photo of a spotless kitchen. I'm genuinely impressed, I replied. Maybe Mom was right for once. When I checked our family group chat, the praise was effusive. It's wonderful seeing you two support each other. Mom wrote under a photo Mason posted of my condo, which was tagged as his new studio space. Family help each other. Proud of my kids. Hash blessed. My dad, Walter, added his typical brief comment. Good to see. That's what siblings do. I felt a warm glow of approval I rarely experienced from them. Maybe this arrangement wasn't going to be the disaster I'd feared. After about 2 months, I eased my oversight. Work demands increased, and I'd started dating someone new. I'd text Mason occasionally, but stop my surprise visits. Everything good at the condo? I'd ask. All good. Place is clean. Bills paid. Studio's coming along great, he'd reply enthusiastically. I scrolled through his Instagram posts showing neat music equipment setups and artistic shots of my property. Each update reassured me things were under control. I should have known social media rarely shows the complete truth. One Tuesday night, I suddenly remembered I'd left some important marketing presentation files in the condo. I needed them for a client meeting the next day, so I drove over without texting first. When I arrived, I heard not just music, but what sounded like someone speaking loudly inside. I rang the doorbell, but nobody answered. After several attempts, I used my key to let myself in. The scene that greeted me froze me in place. An unknown young woman was standing in my living room, posing in front of a ring light, speaking animatedly to a phone on a tripod. She was wearing a crop top with designer logos, gesturing to the space around her. When she saw me, her Instagram live broadcast still running, her expression shifted from shock to territorial anger. What the hell? Who are you and why are you barging into our studio apartment? She demanded, still on camera. Our studio apartment? I felt my face flush with embarrassment, knowing viewers were watching us. Hello? I'm talking to you. You can't just walk into someone's space with a key, she continued, picking up her phone but keeping the broadcast going. Before I could respond, Mason emerged from the bedroom wearing sweatpants. His face dropped when he spotted me. Elaine. I didn't know you were stopping by, he stammered. Obviously, I said, finding my voice while acutely aware of the live audience. Who is this? The woman angled her phone to include me in the frame. I should be asking who you are. I'm Elaine. I own this property. I turned to Mason. Explain to me this. This is Tessa, Mason said, stepping between us. My girlfriend. She's helping with my social presence. She needed a place after her roommate situation fell through, and you moved her in without asking me. I finished, my voice tight. Even though the first rule in our agreement was no unauthorized residence. Tessa rolled her eyes dramatically. Oh my God. Are you serious? We're adults. Mason doesn't need permission for who stays in his creative space. It's not his creative space, I stated firmly. It's my investment property. Elaine, come on, Mason pleaded with that familiar expression he'd perfected since childhood. We're building something real together. I was going to tell you, but I knew you'd get all corporate about it. I glanced between them, Mason with his practiced innocent look, while Tessa live streamed my humiliation to who knows how many followers. How long has she been living here? I asked. About a month, Mason admitted. A month. 4 weeks of live streams from my property without my knowledge. I inhaled deeply and silently counted backward from 10. Mason, can we talk privately for a minute? Anything you need to say to him can be said in front of me and my followers, Tessa cut in, still recording. I stared directly at her. I'd like to speak to my brother alone in my property. Mason touched Tessa's arm gently. Just give us a sec, babe. I'll make it quick. She huffed dramatically but ended her live stream, stomping to the bedroom and slamming the door behind her. She's charming, I muttered once she was gone. She's just protective of our brand, Mason explained. And you kinda threw off her content schedule by walking in with the key to my studio. I crossed my arms tightly. Mason, what the hell? We had a signed agreement. I know, he sighed. But we've been collaborating for 3 months, and her roommates kicked her out over creative differences, and it made sense for our workflow. She's talented once you follow her content. I wanted them out quickly, but I knew what would happen next. My parents would flood the family chat with disappointed messages, and I'd become the heartless sister destroying my brother's dreams. Fine, I conceded. She can stay too. But the other terms still apply. Maintain the property. No loud recording sessions. No structural changes without asking. Mason's face lit up, and he hugged me. You're seriously the best. I promise we'll respect all the other conditions. This is going to be amazing for my career. I already regret this, I mumbled. But he was too busy texting to hear me. As I gathered my files and headed toward the door, Tessa emerged from the bedroom, phone in hand. "So I'm allowed to stay." "How generous of the landlord," she said with a smirk. "Tessa, come on," Mason said weakly. "No, I'm serious." "Thank you, Elaine," she said, but her tone carried zero gratitude. "Next time, text before using your key. It would get in the way of my live stream." I opened my mouth to remind her whose name was on the property title, but decided it wasn't worth becoming content for her followers. "Sure." As I reached for the doorknob, Tessa stepped in front of me and opened it herself. "By now," she said with a practiced smile and practically pushed me out. I stood in the hallway, stunned and shaking. Had my brother's girlfriend just ejected me from my own property while possibly recording the whole thing for social media? That weekend, I found myself dragged into a family video chat, still seething about the encounter. "So I met Mason's girlfriend," I said, my camera showing me sipping wine at home rather than joining them in person. "Isn't she fabulous?" Mom gushed, her face too close to her phone camera. "Mason showed us her Instagram." "Such an influencer." I nearly choked on my Cabernet. "Fabulous? She was live streaming from my property without permission." I recounted discovering Tessa broadcasting from my condo and her territorial behavior toward me. Mom's perfectly highlighted hair shook as she dismissed my concerns. "You probably just interrupted her content creation and using your key without texting first. That would throw off anyone's engagement metrics." "It's my investment property," I said, feeling like I was explaining this to a wall. "And they violated our signed agreement." "Oh, Elaine," Mom sighed dramatically. "You need to understand, Mason's building his brand here. They're creating a digital presence together." In my condo, I emphasized, gripping my wine glass tighter. "Can't you support your brother's creative journey?" Dad chimed in from the background. "After Mark's affair, you should understand how important finding the right partner is." That barb stung deep. They knew my ex-husband had cheated with his coworker. Yet somehow they were weaponizing my failed marriage to manipulate me about Mason. "This isn't about my divorce," I said firmly. "It's about Mason disregarding our contract. Family connection matters more than paperwork," Mom declared with finality. "You have 2 properties, Elaine. Your brother has none. You can afford to be generous with your success." I muted myself, took a deep breath, then unmuted to change the subject entirely. The following week, I received a utility alert for the condo. My stomach dropped when I saw the amounts. Nearly triple what they should be. I texted Mason immediately. "What's going on with the electricity bill? It's skyrocketed since last month." "Well," he replied after a notable delay. "Tessa set up some equipment for her content. Just some lighting." I opened the usage app and called him directly. "Mason, this isn't just some lighting. What exactly are you running there?" "So, well," he hesitated. "I might have set up a small crypto mining rig. It's an investment, Elaine. Could actually make us money." I closed my eyes and counted to 10 again. "Mason, I'm the one paying those bills." "I know. I'm sorry. I'll adjust the setup." "Please do," I said firmly. "I can't afford these increases with my mortgage payments." "I promise, sis. I'll handle it." I wanted to believe him, but the steadily climbing usage graph suggested otherwise. 3 weeks later, my phone lit up with a text message. It was Mrs. Chen, the Chinese-American woman who lived next door to my condo. "Miss Elaine, I apologize for disturbing you," she wrote, followed by a video attachment. "There have been very loud gatherings in your unit. Many nights, past midnight, excessive noise, streams of visitors." I watched the shaky video she'd sent showing my condo entrance with music thumping and people carrying drinks. The next day, I drove to the condo after work. I knocked, then rang the doorbell, but no one answered. I tried using my phone app to unlock the door, but received an access denied message. I stared at my screen in disbelief. They had changed the smart lock settings. They had locked me out of my own property. I was beyond furious now. I returned to my car to wait. 2 hours later, Mason and Tessa appeared, walking toward the building entrance. I followed them inside and up the elevator. When they reached the door, I called out, "Mason!" He turned, his face dropping when he saw me. Tessa looked annoyed. What are you doing here? She asked. We need to talk about why my key app doesn't work anymore, I said. Mason, at least, had the decency to look embarrassed. Elaine, I can explain. Let's talk inside, I insisted, pushing past Tessa, who gave me a dirty look but stepped aside. Once inside, I noticed the condo was messier than before. Empty energy drinks surrounded computer equipment, and the living room furniture had been rearranged for filming. Why did you change the smart lock? I demanded. Before Mason could answer, Tessa jumped in. I didn't like you interrupting our live streams whenever you wanted. It's unprofessional. I turned to Mason. Did you agree to this? He looked at the floor, then nodded slightly. You know what? I've had enough, I said. Mrs. Chen sent me videos of your parties. That old lady needs to mind her business, Tessa muttered. The neighbors are my concern, I said. And so are the utility bills, which have tripled since your mining rig appeared. Mason stepped forward. Elaine, can we talk about this later when everyone's calmer? No, we're talking about it now, I insisted. You've broken every rule we agreed on. You moved someone in without asking. You're not maintaining the property. You're hosting parties. And now you've locked me out of my own condo. Tessa rolled her eyes and opened her laptop, pulling up a PDF. Here. What's this? I asked, not looking at the screen. Visitor guidelines, she said, turning the laptop toward me. If you want to visit the studio, these are the requirements. I scanned the document, not believing what I was seeing. As I read through the list, my jaw tightened. The document demanded 24-hour notice before visits, restricted access hours, prohibited financial discussions, required NDAs, and insisted I bring refreshments for their content team. The list continued with increasingly ridiculous demands. I looked up to see Tessa smirking and Mason looking uncomfortable. Something snapped inside me, a strange calm washed over me. You have 1 week to move out. Their smug expressions vanished. What? Mason sputtered. You can't evict us, Tessa shouted. We have rights. You're not on any lease. There is no lease. This is my property, and I'm telling you that you have 1 week to find somewhere else to live. Tessa's face contorted with rage. She grabbed a vase from the shelf, a blue glass piece from my honeymoon in Venice, and threw it to the floor. It shattered into dozens of pieces. I flinched but kept my composure. That vase cost $300. You'll be reimbursing me. Go to hell, she spat. She reached for another decorative item, a ceramic bowl. Touch anything else and I'm calling the police, I warned. Destruction of property is a crime. She froze, hands still outstretched. 1 week, I repeated, then turned and walked out. As I closed the door behind me, I heard Tessa yelling, with Mason trying to calm her down. I walked to my car with my head high, but once inside, my hands started shaking. I'd never stood up to Mason like that before. I had just pulled into my driveway when my phone blew up with notifications. Mom's name topped the family group chat. Great. Mason had already reached out to them. I opened the messages, bracing myself. Elaine, what is wrong with you? Mom wrote with angry emojis. Mason just called us in tears. How could you kick your brother and his girlfriend out onto the street? Mom, they changed my smart lock without permission and blocked my access, I replied. I'm sure they had their reasons, she dismissed. You're always interrupting their content without notice. Dad chimed in. Your mom and I are very disappointed in you, Elaine. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Dad? I interrupted. I bought my own place. I pay my own mortgage. I'm letting Mason use my property rent-free, and he's taking advantage. That girl seems quite creative, Mom wrote. Mason says you've been hostile toward her from the start. I laughed in disbelief. Tessa smashed my Venice vase today. She created a document of rules I must follow to enter my own property. You're exaggerating, Mom responded. Ever since Mark cheated, you've been bitter. We understand, sweetie, but don't take it out on your brother. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I muted the chat and put my phone down. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at nothing, letting the anger and hurt wash over me. The next day, I called my lawyer to confirm I was within my rights to evict Mason and Tessa. I verified I could legally demand them to leave as they weren't on the lease, and the property was mine. I also scheduled a smart home technician to reset all systems at the condo the following week. The days crawled by painfully. Mason texted me, but I left them unread. It swung between hostile, "You're destroying my career," and "Please, Elaine, we need a place to set up the studio." I didn't respond to any of them. Dad and Mom flooded my inbox too. I ignored those messages as well. Finally, the week elapsed. I took a personal day and drove to the condo, the technician scheduled to arrive shortly after me. I wasn't sure what to expect. Would they have left already? I knocked on the door, and surprisingly, Mason answered immediately. His eyes were bloodshot, and he looked exhausted. "We're almost finished moving out," he said quietly. I nodded and stepped inside. The condo was chaotic, equipment and belongings everywhere. Tessa was in the bedroom, stuffing designer clothes into a suitcase. "Where will you go?" I asked, despite my better judgment. "Mom and Dad said we can crash with them until we figure things out," Mason replied, avoiding eye contact. I felt a flicker of guilt, which I quickly pushed away. This was the consequence of their actions, not my problem. We barely spoke as they completed their packing. Tessa refused to acknowledge my presence, moving around as if I were invisible. When they were finally ready to leave, she emailed me the smart lock password without saying a word. "Tessa," Mason said weakly, but she was already out the door. Mason hesitated a moment. "I'm sorry about the vase and the lock. It was Tessa's idea, but I went along with it." "You always just go along with things, Mason," I said. "That's your fundamental problem." He nodded sadly, then picked up the last of his equipment and left. After they left, I examined my room. There were holes in the walls where equipment had been mounted and burn marks on the countertops. In the kitchen, empty drink cans filled the sink, and something unidentifiable grew in the refrigerator. The smart home technician arrived and reset all systems. I paid extra to install advanced security features with multi-factor authentication. While he worked, I began cleaning, filling bag after bag with discarded packaging and abandoned props. It took 3 full days of intensive work to restore the condo to livable condition. I hired professional cleaners and ended up replacing damaged flooring where the mining rig had overheated. The total rehabilitation cost me over $1,200. I created a professional listing for the property. I arranged photography, wrote a comprehensive description, and set a rate that would cover my mortgage plus maintenance expenses. Within days, I received multiple applications. I thoroughly vetted each potential tenant, verifying employment, checking references, and running extensive credit checks. I ultimately selected Dr. Naomi Grant, a promising young resident at the university hospital. We signed a detailed lease agreement with clear expectations and responsibilities. When she moved in, I transferred the digital access codes with a sense of professional pride. This was the proper approach, a straightforward business arrangement between responsible adults. As I drove home, I felt the weight lifting from my shoulders. The rental income would contribute significantly to my mortgage, just as I'd originally planned before Mason had disrupted everything. For the next few weeks, I savored my restored peace. I immersed myself in work projects and reconnected with friends over dinner. The relief was surprisingly liberating. Mom eventually stopped flooding the family chat, though occasional posts still appeared with pointed captions like "missing our whole family," "family first," and "some people need to let go of pride." I scrolled past these without engaging. Then, about a month after Mason and Tessa vacated my property, I received a private message from Mom that caught my attention. "Elaine, I know you're still upset, but we need to speak privately. It's important. Please call me when you can." Something in the wording felt different. I hesitated, then decided to return the call. "Mom, what's going on?" There was a heavy sigh on the other end. "Elaine, I owe you an apology. Tessa is not who we thought she was. She's commandeered our guest room like her personal studio. She's left equipment everywhere, runs up our internet bill with constant streaming, and when we demand basic attention, she counters." "Sounds remarkably familiar," I said dryly. "She's posted photos of my jewelry on her SNS claiming they're borrowed pieces for her fashion content," Mom continued, her voice unsteady. and she told Walter he can't use his office after 8 p.m. because the lighting interferes with her evening broadcasts. I couldn't suppress a flicker of vindication. I told her, that must be challenging for you both. I understand now what you were dealing with, Mom admitted. Could you talk to Mason, perhaps persuade him and Tessa to find their own place? Your dad and I are completely overwhelmed. I laughed in disbelief. Are you serious right now? You want me to resolve your situation after you publicly sided against me? Elaine, please. We made a terrible mistake. We're your parents. And I'm your daughter, I replied. But that didn't prevent you from accusing me of being bitter and resentful. I reported to you about their mistreatment toward me and the damage to my property, and you didn't stop them. We were wrong, Mom said softly. I'm truly sorry. The apology should have been satisfying, but it felt hollow and self-serving. Mom, you and Dad created this dynamic. You've enabled Mason's behavior his entire life. You taught him that consequences don't apply to him and someone else will always handle his messes. What should we do about them? Mom asked, sounding genuinely lost. That's your situation to manage, not mine. Just like my condo was my responsibility, remember? A long silence stretched between us. Will you at least rejoin family dinner sometime? Perhaps next weekend? I considered it carefully. Part of me wanted to maintain the distance, to let them experience the consequences of their choices. But another part recognized this might be an opportunity for authentic change in our family patterns. I'll consider it, I said finally. But I won't be solving this problem for you. I understand, Mom said. We love you, Elaine. After hanging up, I sat on my couch, processing the conversation. There was a certain poetic justice in my parents experiencing firsthand what I'd endured. Perhaps now they'd recognize why I'd taken the stand I did. Over the next few days, I contemplated whether to attend Saturday dinner. In the end, I decided to go, not to solve their problems, but to establish proper boundaries for our relationship going forward. As for Mason and Tessa, I felt no obligation to help them. Mason made his choices, and he could live with the consequences. Something positive could emerge if this experience forced him to grow up and take responsibility for his actions. Meanwhile, Dr. Grant's rent payments arrived punctually each month. The funds went toward my mortgage, as I'd planned. I was moving forward with my life on my own terms, without apologizing for protecting what was rightfully mine.